Well, hello, diary listeners. Happy July. It's now July 1st. I'm recording this on a Monday, so I'm getting a little bit of an edge on this week's episode, which I am calling The Sincerest Form of Flattery. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
Okay, listeners, I hope that you guys enjoyed that replay last week from Fireside Tattoo Network and Derek Youngberg announcing with Jake Meeks and me the scholarship that we're going to have at Paradise Tattoo Gathering, and the growth of that venture. I think from what I understand, again, from Derek, is that it's going into a full-on nonprofit. They really want to provide a space where people can contribute to tattoo education for many events and many possibilities that have education at the forefront of all of this, and offer up opportunities for the next generation of tattoo artists. So that's really freaking cool. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. The motivation of this podcast, I guess, is that I noticed something. I was actually tipped off to something by a listener that has been listening to the show for a very long time, and who I knew before she was a tattoo artist. And so I'm not going to name her name, but I was tipped off to the fact that Painful Pleasures actually has a new segment out of their, I guess, they have a new segment out. I don't even know what you call it. They're a distributing house and a product company that makes products now. But they have a new segment where they do interviews with tattoo professionals, and they've called it The Apprenticeship Diaries. Now, I didn't know about this. I was very honored to have had a longtime listener of the show tell me about this and let me know about it. And I have to admit to you, listeners, that my first reaction was just not thrilled. Like, I was kind of like, wow, man, like they totally snaked my idea. And it's odd, right? Because I feel like I kind of have drawn this to me a little bit. I have I've kind of waited in certain spaces to be copied. And I always expected it would be in my art, but it never has, at least that I can tell. A lot of people have always influenced me, but nobody's ever copied my art. And I guess it's just because, with tattooing, the work that I do for the most part with my clients is so unique and individual to them and their personal brand that if anybody were to mimic that, it would be so obvious, and it's so personal and so unique typically that it doesn't often happen. I think I've only seen it like one time with something that was like, how could you? I mean, it was with a very traditional, not traditional, that's the wrong word, a classic themed America tribute tattoo with like an eagle and an American flag. And I saw another artist who I'm fairly confident used my tattoo as a reference for her piece. But I mean, how many different ways can you actually, skin a cat when it comes to like that subject matter? If the person wants an American bald eagle and, an American flag, there's only so many ways you can do it. And if they're adamant that they want it done as the tattoo that they see, then that's what, you can only do so much with that. So I feel like that's a pass. And, I also think that because the show doesn't fully concentrate on tattooing as its repertoire of apprenticeship journeys, that it highlights. I mean, by no means have I cornered the market on this. The other thing I can say is that I just here's what I want to deliver to everybody in terms of this happening. One, I can only hope that this has very sincere motivations to grow and strengthen the tattoo industry, well, community. Because industry is what I think it's about. And I only think that because of where it's coming from. And I have had quite the experience in my life going back to the hair industry, which, if anybody knows, is one of the most regulated professions. And it's aside from prostitution, it's the oldest. So it's had a lot of time to get this far and this fettered. And so I'm leery when it comes to this topic, which is why I made it a passion of mine to talk to people about their starts, their beginnings. Obviously, from day one, I've had a multitude of concerns or thoughts, whether it be from my own experience or somebody else's, the idea of formal education in this industry, the idea of apprenticeship, the idea of what should the look be and how should we handle this. And there's been many iterations that I have gone through with this. In the beginning of my life as a tattoo artist, I was really like, whoa, man, I can't believe that this isn't something that's being taught. I can't believe this isn't being opened up to more people. And, and I'm sorry, I just got a text message. One moment. I'll be right back. So I apologize for that brief moment. I get text messages on my phone, and then it goes to my computer, and then you guys can hear the ding. So I really apologize for that. It might happen again. I had just messaged somebody very quickly before I started recording, so I do apologize if there's intermittent bings. I don't know how I can control that here in recording. I guess I could just turn. I don't know. I guess I could just turn off all notifications on my text messaging, I guess. But anyway, in the beginning of all of this, I thought, wow, why don't we have schools? This seems silly, but like everything in tattooing, I thought, I didn't know anything. That's the thing, is that when you're on the outside looking in, you think, wow, why isn't this happening and this happening and this happening? And to his credit, my former boss, John, gave me a lot of insight. He's like, well, it's kind of cool that it is the way that it is, because it's not, you don't have the state making all of these regulations and all these demands of people like me who own studios and who have to, basically comply with whatever regulations that they require a studio to have in order to be operational. And he's like, once that happens, it can get really crazy. He's like, they could make a certain kind of paint that you have to have on the wall that's like antibacterial or some shit. And he's like, they could say that every room needs to have a sink in it, but that doesn't make any sense either, because you're not supposed to dump pigment down a sink, and you're not supposed to use tap water necessarily, though it's not awful if you do. Most people prefer distilled or some kind of filtered water that someone uses if, you're doing things that are on the body, distilled being preferable. But like, I in my head, it was like, oh, well, I guess, but it just limited so much of the access. But now I see why that was very purposeful, because I do think what John broke down was that, it keeps it in the hands of the practitioners, which in one way is good, because the people who actually are doing the tattooing are the ones who are kind of controlling who gets into it and who gains access. But on the other hand, there was a lot of abuse there, and there was a lot of just regulations that went way south, which in this industry, I do think that it's very likely that can happen, which is why we've heard on this podcast anyway, a lot of interesting stories, especially coming out of the tattoo world, in terms of their apprenticeships, because it's just all over the place, and it can go anything to like, self-teaching, very, very brutal, like hands-off, very abusive, to like very framed, very structured, very clean, and very responsible. So, you got that gauntlet of experience, but what you also got was very passionate players and people who, if they had a mind and they had a will, they could find a way. And it didn't require a lot of money to do it either. And like my boss said, it was something that where, there wasn't anything telling you how you had to perform. And, if you guys like go to any tattoo conventions, which I hope you do, if you're interested in this, this field at all, I would assume that if you're here, you're either a client of mine, or you're interested in tattooing, or you are a tattoo artist, or, you have had an apprenticeship of some kind that, makes you wonder, how other apprenticeships are. But, it's much like most industries in a lot of ways when it comes down to the business of it. And those who can pay can play. And, so what I want to say here, without insinuating anything, is that people who love this profession need to keep the love alive, and need to fight for it, and need to make sure that it stays in the right hands. Because if it doesn't stay in the right hands, we'll lose it. We'll lose it, and we'll lose it to people who are not, who don't really care about tattooing. They they don't care. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think it's a hard one, right? Because I think in the beginning there's lots of caring. I think that regulation also often starts that way. And there's a lot of very concerned hearts that go into it. I mean, it has to be in order for it to gain momentum, and it has to get buy-in power by a lot of practitioners who, feel like this is the only way, and that, if it's going to happen, that they'd rather be involved. I mean, that was my position at one point too. It was like, well, if this is going to happen anyway, I might as well get on board and at least be a part of something that I know I can affect. My view now is more, I guess, measured. I'm trying really hard to not have so much ego about myself. I'm a very, self-involved person. I can tell you guys that. And be very honest about it. I have been most of my life. And I do know things. But I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything, which is why I did formulate the show the way I did, was for a few reasons, to hopefully like other tattoo artists and connect with other tattoo artists that I had a similar mindset with and a rapport. And I know that through learning people's stories that you can love them a little bit better, you can understand them a little bit better, and you can decide a lot of things about whether or not that's, your crowd. And so I thought it was a good platform for that, and anybody can talk about their learning, education, story. And so I felt like it was a kind of universally open space for anybody to really do, express. And I didn't have to be an authority on anything. I just had to host the show, and I had to keep growing the show and wanting to move it forward and make it integral, which is why I haven't done a lot of things that are about buying ad space and things like that, and really trying to maximize the algorithms and things. There's certain things that I might be doing myself a disservice, honestly. Like, paying for ad space might be something to play with and see. But as far as like like all the bells and whistles, having to do things that are big and bombastic and full of bright colors and just bah, 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 meh, meh, into a time frame schedule and very like polished and all this. I mean, I just didn't think that was the kind of thing that would attract the kind of will that I wanted, the kind of passion that I felt like is required of a really good apprenticeship prospect. Because you have to work, man. You got to hustle. And the one thing I know that happens once you formalize education is that there's lots of room for you to get away with not exceeding very well. And then you get a piece of paper by the end of it, and nobody knows how you actually scored on anything. Nobody even knows half the time what was required of you in order to get the piece of paper. The reason why I bring this up is because I've said it on the show before that that what happens is, when regulation is being formulated, it very rarely comes from the people who do the job themselves. It might be backed by those people and framed by those people because they see a lot of crap happening in their industry that they don't feel solely able to affect change, and they want change, and they want it from a very integral place because they care about people, they care about their industry, they care about doing the right thing, they care about proper education, and they value those things. The issue is that very rarely are those the people who keep up with the kind of bureaucracy that is required to manage and maintain regulation. And then it scales into a bunch of nonsense that really isn't about all of the integral things that the person wanted wanted in the beginning. All it does is limit access, which I guess maybe for some tattoo artists, that's their aim. They're like, we need less people in this business. We need less people in this business. Personally, I think that we are where we are right now as tattoo artists because of inflation. I think a lot of people think that we are right now because we're just so oversaturated and like, everybody's tattooing. We're all doing everybody else's stuff and there's not enough uniqueness. I mean, maybe, but that's easily changed and that's easily guided. If that's the case, all you have to do is, if you're really an artist, then just start making art and putting it out there and selling your art and selling your ideas. And I promise you that if you just buckle down and make art, people will get it. In my experience, if I make art and I make it look good and I put it out there and say, hey, I want to do this, people come and they get it. They might not get all of it, but they come and get it. Like, you're not... And then, if they don't get it, you've already made the artwork. And so then you can use that to do other things with it. You don't have to necessarily tattoo it. So, that's kind of the industry of being an artist, is that, whatever doesn't get tattooed, you can easily put on a t-shirt or some other little commodity thing that you want to put out in the world and utilize it in a certain way. I mean, that's possible. Come on. So, I don't accept that. I think it's inflation. I think it was how we played COVID, how we let our leaders shut us down and tell us how to live and tell us what we did and make everybody really scared of everything. And now, what happened after COVID is everybody was super busy. And I guess I should have capitalized on it, but I couldn't. I've said that on the show. I couldn't. I just felt like everybody had experienced a death, a mourning of some kind, and they needed to go through the stages of grief. And everybody was very reactionary after COVID, and everybody had money that either had been a stimulus kind of thing or just, they were working, or they were being, reactionary. Like a lot of people were being reactionary, and wanting to get in and wanting to get tattooed and wanting to comment. And I saw it and I was like, I can't indulge this. So I only tattooed the people that I already had relationships with and projects with. And so now the well's drying up a bit. This is a feast and famine industry, folks. Like, if you're going to get into being an entrepreneur, then you have to save for a rainy day. You have to have a fortitude about you that the money will come again. That it will, it might seem scrimpy now, but there's always room to turn up the heat and maximize your output and do more. It's all kind of about what you can do. And now I know that, at least for me, that I really don't want a lot of people in what I do. I don't want a lot of hands in the pot. Which is why in some ways, my heart has been wandering to other spaces like calligraphy and learning about the Bible and getting a spiritual connection going and growing in relationships with my family and and carving and things that I've shared here that have been haphazard and kind of exploratory at this point. The other thing has been social media play and marketing and things. I'm volunteering to do some background work to help social media market, and I found that really fun. Shout out to the app CapCut. I do have Premiere Pro, but I'm really loving CapCut, and I'm enjoying it. Like, it's been really fun. I'm sure Premiere Pro has a lot to offer too. Video editing has been super fun. So I'm kind of dabbling in a bunch of spaces and trying to diversify my knowledge and dip my toes in a lot of things and play with things. I'm always late to the game in a lot of ways, but I'm trying to play with those things and experiment and see what works and see what doesn't and see what's fun for me. That's a big thing that I recommend to people when they're kind of sitting around, they don't know what's next, is like, well, what do you enjoy? What do you love? What could you do no matter what? And, I don't understand people who don't have at least a handful of those things that they can call upon. I know I have them. And so I'm exploring all of those things. But yeah, I think that I think that people are understanding where we're at as a country and economically, and those things are becoming a lot more pressing now, and they're not going to get better. And so I see that, and I also see how, certain companies were considered essential and other people weren't. And the people who weren't were small businesses and independent contractors that were in like these jobs that people thought, we don't need, like hairstylists, for example. Even though these are licensed professionals, even though these are regulated professions. And so I didn't see that any of this regulation really mattered when it came down to, for instance, a health scare crisis, even though a practitioner who is licensed has far more knowledge about how to protect the public than, say, the kid working at Burger King. And probably far more oversight and care about what they're doing because they understand the ramifications of what they're doing and they want to do a good job because they're drawn to it from a very integral place. So getting back to being mimicked, I don't think that I've cornered the market on anything. I hope that the aim of this is to just widen the amount of conversation around this. I think that that's good. There should be lots of conversations around this, and I think everybody's story is good to have out there. And I was always told by my mother that mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery. And I do think that's true too, because when I sit back and I think about my feelings about Painful Pleasures new segment, obviously in the beginning I felt like, wow, man, really? I don't even want to voice it because it was naturally upsetting in many ways and cutting to me. Because here I am, I've been doing this for 5 years and could have easily reached out to me and implored me and utilized what I'm already doing and asked me, but no. So they went ahead and did their own thing, and they pretty much are doing the same thing that I framed 5 years ago. They even used the word raw in their advertisement, which I was like, oh my God. Because mine is raw to refined, right? And it's been that way for a long time. But then I thought, it's cool, man. It's cool. I'm going to let them do their thing. And I'm going to let them take it as far. Let them. I'm just going to let them do it. Let them. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. And they got the players and they got the power. They got the manpower. They got everything. And they got the bombasticness and they've got, all this stuff. going on. And, you know, I'm just gonna pray that this all has a reason. And I'm going to sit here and think how lovely it is that I actually had an idea that was really good 5 years ago. Good enough to be mimicked. Hello, diary listeners. Sorry for this interruption, but I had to do a brief promotional recording / advertisement, as we would say in the US, about Paradise Tattoo Gathering. I am aiding this event in shouting it out. I'd love to meet some of you in Paradise and, get to give you a hug for all of the awesome interactions and, the gratitude I have for your listening time. In order to do this and to attend just on its base level, we're going to be meeting in Western Massachusetts. It's at Jiminy Peak Mountain Resort. It's an awesome, awesome venue. And what's great about it is that you are kind of trapped on a mountain with all of these truly dope artists, and there's only so many places that we can go. So you're bound to run into people that you probably only dreamed about meeting. And on top of that, these artists are going to be doing amazing seminars. I'm going to be giving away a seminar on how to be an awesome apprenticeship prospect. So that's going to be my freebie that I offer. I'm also going to be tattooing this year. So whatever way you're coming at this, you're going to go to www.tattoogathering.com to get your Artist Weekend Pass. If you get it now, they're giving away a early bird sweatshirt with it, which they're pretty dope. I have to say that what I like about the sweatshirt is they're not black. It's not a black hoodie. Whenever you go to tattoo conventions, it's just a sea of black hoodies, and it's just, I guess you can find the tattoo convention, but here we're gonna be on a mountain. And it's going to be hard to avoid the tattoo convention because it's just going to be there. And that's all that's going to be there for the most part. And they do have at this time of year, October 24th to the 27th, pardon me. They do have a Halloween haunted house kind of thing that they set up. So that's pretty cool. But apart from that, it's off season. It's beautiful. The leaves are shining. It's just a wonderful nature spot for anybody who's interested. And there's all level of things happening. If you would like to tattoo, again, go to www.tattoogathering.com, fill out your booth application. It's such a great convention to kind of work because it's intimate. It's not as busy as those normal tattoo conventions. You can get all manner of things if you go to that webpage, find out about Paradise, and just know that I will be very happy to meet you in Paradise, as this is an event that I try to make every time it happens. All right, listeners, back to our podcast. And, it isn't exact mimicry. It's pretty freaking exact, but it does center around tattooing and tattoo artists specifically. My only thing is that, like I said, I don't want to make any assumptions, and I don't want to claim anything. But oftentimes I think that you really have to follow the motivations of these things, and you have to be realistic with yourself about why people are doing things. What are they in this for? What are their reasons for doing what they're doing? Where does that lead to ultimately, and what might they be getting out of it? Because that's how you know whether or not, in my eyes, it's an integral or good action. As if, are you doing this because it needs to be done, and you're really taking a leap and sacrificing quite a bit in order to do it, because you really care about the greater plan? Or is there a reason that's very personally affirming and beneficial? I mean, like, let's be real. Everybody has some personal take home. I mean, this has been very refreshing for me every single, week, for the most part, over 5 years, to submit something for you all to listen to. I mean, it's like, I've said it many times, it's like the only diary entry that I've been able to do consistently and thing I can do consistently. And it makes me super happy that I have that about me. So that's happiness. And I've been welcomed into certain spaces because of, just having a podcast or just being a tattoo artist, or, having a podcast that has a lot of tattoo focus on it, and just those kind of things. It's afforded me some really cool opportunities that I am not at all ungrateful for. And it still will. It still will. And, I'm doing my thing and they're going to do their thing. And I really wanted to talk about that because one, it's happening, and I because I was tipped off by an avid listener that it was happening, I know that my listeners are going to want to know my take on it. And, I'm not as big as them. But that's my take. I'm gonna just pray about it, and I'm gonna see what happens. What I can tell you is that product companies in the hair industry were the main ones that moved to regulate and to put their money into regulation, schools, and all that stuff. And that all gets intertwined eventually. And then once you have formal schools in it, like I said, it starts out fairly strong in the beginning. It does. But then as it goes on, there's less and less oversight, and there's more and more money funneling through. And, education is a business just like any other. So if you're not making money, then you're not going to be able to keep offering the kind of education that you would like to, and that you feel good about. And, like, that's the thing, right? Like, it's either the quality has to stay really, really high, and you have to really make sure that it's Ivy League status, man, and that's what people are paying for. Or it's a numbers game, and you got to get as many people in those seats as possible, buying from you. And in my experience, quality is something that often falls to the wayside. And my father used to say, and by the way, just as a personal drop in here, today my dad went under the knife. He's getting neck surgery. He's getting 2 discs fused in his neck, and then a replacement of I believe a disc, so that he can have some mobility and not a total fusion. He is out of surgery and doing well and recovering. So that's all great, just to let everybody know. But the man I'm about to speak about, he had to go under the knife today. And so my prayers have been with him, and my family has had things going on in the background. But he said to me once, and to his clients once, there were some clients that were kind of upset that his prices went up at his hair salon. And he said, well, I might lose people, but I try to make sure that as my prices go up, so does the quality of the service. And if I lose people due to the fact that, they can't afford it anymore. He's like, that's kind of, he's like, it's sad, but it's kind of the best way to move, because he's like, I know I haven't dropped my service. I haven't dropped the quality of the service. It might be that somebody's not able to afford that anymore. That's fine. That's why there's different levels of, of people out there, of service. You can walk in same day, get a haircut at certain places. But, at the level that we were at, it was an appointment only shop for the most part. You couldn't get in unless you had an appointment. And it was a fully staffed salon where there was many different arms of it. We had front end staff. We had shampoo techs. We had apprentices that were paid. We had, working professionals that were doing their books all day, going through their clients. And the education that was given to me, at least in my dad's, it was phenomenal. There was always a new color system that we were learning, or technique, or hair treatment. We were going to conventions. I even went to, when I was part of the front end staff, he took me to, or sent me away to a seminar on how to be a better front end person. So the level of education was high for the people that worked at my dad's salon. So when you paid what you paid at my dad's salon, you were paying for a high quality thing. And the people who went there knew it. And it basically, my dad was like saying, like, if I can't service everybody who wants to get in my chair, he's like, that sucks for me, but it does mean that I'm offering a stellar service. There's only so much I can do in a day. There's only so much my staff can do in a day. But as long as the service doesn't drop and the quality doesn't drop, it's fine to charge more, because we hope to provide more and we want to keep providing more. Now, whether or not you're able to afford it, that's on you. That's your choice. But that was the way it was always framed to me in business, is that you keep upping, if you charge more, the value's there. Or at the very least, you understand what the value is, and you keep raising your price until the market can't substantiate it anymore. What I've seen also happening too, and this is another thing, is that because of the amount of printing that went on of our money in order to get through COVID and people not working, and the amount of suppression of interest rates, et cetera, and so on, everything cost-wise has gone up, including supplies. So what I've seen is that a lot of people have upped their prices in tattooing drastically. And I think at this point, in a lot of ways, whilst it might be necessary in order for that tattoo artist to stay afloat in terms of what they were doing before and how they were able to pay their bills and live their life, tattoos are an extra in life. And if they get too expensive and you're not competitive enough to keep up with, the market, then yeah, you're going to have to lower your prices. You're going to have to work deals. You're going to have to get savvy, which is either a calling to cut competition or a calling to elevate yourself and keep learning and keep growing. And so that's my determination, folks. I'm going to keep learning, and I'm going to keep growing, and I'm going to keep doing me and keep doing this show as I feel integral. I don't really want to compete with anybody. I understand that's crazy because, what is the podcast for? It would grow better if I made money on it, I guess. There'd be more opportunity, more ability to give to you guys something. But there's always what I'm going to ask of you now, which is that on my website, there is a button to donate to this podcast. So if you've loved it and it's done something for you, it doesn't have to be much, but give something to this podcast, show your appreciation for what it's given you. Because I now have people who are, I guess, doing the same thing. And I'm not so sure about where it's going to go with them, but I feel like at this point I've been pretty consistent with you guys about just sharing my heart, my mind, opening you up to a bunch of information or perspectives that you might not have otherwise considered. I'm here to help any of you in your path and have conversations with you, of course, record a diary entry, but I'm also here as a friend, as somebody that if you really needed to have a phone conversation and go through a problem, I've done that with several people who have gone through really terrible and tough times in their journey and just needed somebody to kind of bounce some ideas off of. So I'm willing to be that. And that's the kind of professional I want to be. That's what kind of person I want to be. That's what kind of friend I want to be. And if that means that I can't get too big, if that means that, I don't know what it means. All I know is that money is not my God. I do this because I have so much caring I don't know what to do with. And I want us all to rise together and to be as good as we can be. And we have a lot of power if we don't give it away and we don't bow to things that we think are better than us just because they're more flashy and more polished and yada, yada, yada. Yada, yada, yada. So I did shout out Painful Pleasure's new segment. I did watch it. I don't know if I missed where it was going to be. Maybe it's actually directly on their website. I don't know. But I saw the YouTube short, and that was cool. I'm glad that it's understood now that apprenticeships are really important and they need to be talked about. Obviously, I felt that way for a long time. I know that education is going to get down to this again, and that it's going to be about apprenticeship, and it's going to go back to that. Now, all I can say is that I really, really, really hope that the passionate hearts, the integral hearts, stay in the game, know each other, stay together, help each other, and that they protect and defend what I have grown to love so much for so many different reasons. And, I think a lot of people look at the glitz and glare and the flash of it. It's a lot of freaking hard work, guys. And anybody who's done this journey now and I've watched grow in this industry, they know that now. It's a lot of continual work and continual heart that needs to be put into it. And a lot of risk. You have to be willing to leverage a lot to do this. And, so I hope that it will be fought for. The integrity of this profession will be fought for. And it will be done for the reasons that matter, which is delivering great, great tattoos to people. Fulfilling our clients' wants. Making sure that we're well educated as much as we can be, and that's the focal point. I don't know how much that needs to be told to somebody. I mean, I'm not entirely against regulation. I'll jump through a few hoops. That's fine. I understand the need for that. There is a lot of actual safety reasons for that. Like, I don't know. I try so hard to be safe and to be good and to cover all those bases that I'm sure there's lots of fallout, but I realize, I mean, just on a, like, for instance, like having an ID, just to have an ID, having that in a database so that if anything happens to challenge, the status of, your life or your being, people know who you are. So that's why you have an ID, like if you get hurt in a car accident, nobody knows who you are. If you have your wallet on you and you have an ID, they know who you are and they know who to contact, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not always nefarious. And I can appreciate where it's not. And I'm not insinuating that it always is. I just really, 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 really want the people who go into this industry or any industry to not be deluded about how quickly you can lose control and how much things can shift on a dime when it comes to people. Because more people, more problems, and you get too many cooks in the kitchen and nothing gets baked. And things start falling apart and slacking off. I mean, already we're at a point where people don't make their own needles or they mix their own inks or any of those things. We've lost that. And not everybody, some people I'm sure still do, but a lot of that is having manufacturers of product make these things for you. So it's a dependency. And if you're not willing to challenge those dependencies and rise beyond them, then you're a prisoner to them. And I see that. Which is why I like the idea of calligraphy. I like the idea of wood carving because, you have the electrical versions of these things and these fancy things that you can skip the difference with and probably expedite your ability to make things look good. But at its core, it's very raw. At its core, you're talking growing things in your garden and going out and mashing them together and mixing with a few things, making a pigment. And then, you paint with them. And, as long as you kind of know the general way to make certain things, you can figure it out. So, I mean, I just heard a story of a new friend being kicked out of a tattoo shop because he sells things that are made in Bali. And because he pays his workers a Balinesian, I don't even know how to say it, but a wage that is, I guess, Indonesian wage, that he got kicked out of this tattoo shop. And the woman was so indignant about it. She was like, just, it was like, you need to leave because you don't, basically, convicting him of being a slave laborer or some shit. Meanwhile, completely not taking in the fact that a flight to America from Bali, I'm sure, is no cheap thing. Not to mention, you're probably renting a car the whole time. The time and risk to your life and being that you're taking away from your family in order to go shop to shop to shop and, do all of that. It's it's a lot to put on yourself, and it all has cost, whether it be money or just time, which you can't get back, which is our biggest commodity. And you're making other connections while you're sacrificing others. If it's away from your family, you're not with your family. So, and not to mention, these people are paid well. They're happy. They're like family. It's not even the truth of what she was asserting. And beyond all of that, which is super frustrating, is she's in a tattoo shop. This woman that kicked this merchant out who is selling his wares and bringing them right to you and selling them at a good price. And I guess she just doesn't understand what the hell tattooing has become, because every single cartridge, it doesn't matter brand, for the majority of the sake, every single one of them is produced in some factory in China. Every single one, including a lot of the sterile medical things that go right into hospitals. Like there's factories galore in China that produce and manufacture all those things that we buy from. And not a single company, I'm sure, that exists in these Chinese companies get paid American wages. They get paid their country of origin wage, which is why we do business with them. And I'm fairly certain that there was nothing about her thing that was like, I'm not going to deal with it unless it's made in America, because there's so much of tattooing is not made in America anymore. It's just not. So unless she's in some kind of shop where they're manufacturing their own needles, and I do mean the needles themselves, so that you're not buying pre-made needles, okay? Unless you're in a shop that everything's made in America, and you're making sure that that's the case, and that's the source, and all of those things, then what does she think? Where does she think she lives? And that's why I wanted to talk about all of this, is that we need to understand the price of what we give ourselves to and what we put ourselves to, our listening time. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, because you all have been faithful followers of mine, and I am so blessed by all of you. And I want to thank the listener that tipped me off about painful pleasures. I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the few people who have come on the back end and offered support for how they thought I might be feeling about that. I appreciate your care for me. That's why I wanted to say something about this, but I want people to know that, as far as personally speaking, I am kind of flattered. I am kind of flattered. My initial feeling was like, shit, man, what? But then I was like, you know what? Live and let live. God bless. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put my faith in God. I know why I do what I do. I know where I care. I know why I'm doing it. In general, I just know the why. And I know that it's always had this very core love behind it, that if it ever grows, I it doesn't matter. What matters is that it matters to me, and that I love it, and that I want to continue to do it, and that I am finding that through this, I am able to stay connected to people in the community, to network, and I am finding people of very like mind, and I do like a lot more tattoo artists now than I ever did. And I also think that it has humbled me in the best ways, which is always good. Always, always good. I have a few interviews coming up that I'm really excited about, that I'm really hoping I can be a better interviewer on. So that's exciting. CapCut might introduce some cool video clips to help advertise the podcast. See what happens there. I don't know if I'm ever going to put the podcast on a full display. Maybe, if I get a staff of people, maybe. But that's a whole undertaking, and I kind of like it that what we get here is just the voice, because I think you can hear something in a person's voice that you might be romanced out of if you're seeing all of the glam. If you're not seeing all of that, I think that you're really asked to hear the soul. And there's something magical about that to me. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about any, but I'm gonna trust, and I'm gonna keep going. And I am flattered. And it does strike me that way, that I had a really good idea. And that makes me happy. I'm just amazed that it keeps happening in the weirdest ways that I mimicked. But I am flattered. All right, listeners, that's enough for this week. I think I've given you some things to chew on. I apologize if it wasn't, I guess streamlined. Hopefully I made my points. I hope. Nevertheless, I'm praying for all of you, and I accept prayers from all of you. Definitely, if you want to show this podcast some love, I always like hearing about what you've gotten from the show, and you can email us, DM us, all of those things. Or if you're really feeling awesome and you're able to, donate. There's a donate button on the website. That's TheApprenticeshipDiaries.com. Go and offer some love, and it will be very valued. It will mean a lot to me, and I'm willing also to think about fun things. Like if you want to offer something for the show, or you want to play with an idea with me about something that we could do to expand. I've thought about a few different fun things that I haven't done yet, but I'm willing to hear from the crowd, and I want to keep pushing for all of you, and I want you to know that whatever you put into this show or give to this show, I hope to give back. I love you all. Have a very, very powerful week. Bye, listeners.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is _apprenticeship_diaries. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.